actually in the screen?
Yep, the red nipple's line middle. And it's recording. Don't worry.
Come on.
But you're not smiling.
Oh, I'm not ready to shoot yet. Hi all out there, FG again. This is going to be a little bit of a different project. This is not actually a video. This is actually going to be talking about audio. So there's probably not going to be a whole lot to see here. Hopefully my monologuing doesn't bore you to death or to tears or possibly to go find your liquor cabinet just to dull the pain. But anyway, this was something that had popped up on the Frontier group, the Frontier Owners Group, Club Frontier, and some people were talking about audio and different encoding methodologies and audio quality reproduction in your truck, which obviously, I mean, in a truck, let's be honest, you got a lot of noise. You're probably going to have some tire noise. You definitely have road noise. You're going to have wind noise. You've got engine noise. I mean, these things are not a top-of-the-line Lexus. It's not a rolling bank vault. You get sound. That can be improved by adding sound deadening material in the doors, under the floor, up in the headliner if you really want to go that far. But it's a truck. It is never going to be a rolling concert hall. So, given that, you might be asking why I'm doing this. Well, a lot of you probably have older CD collections, or if you're maybe of a certain age, or perhaps you just raided somebody's yard sale and collected a massive pile at 25 cents a piece, which, hey, that was a good deal considering, these used to be $10, $15, $18 a piece. So wherever you may have come across those, wanted to talk to you a little bit about audio, as I'd mentioned. So we're going to be discussing a particular software package called JRiver Media Center. I'm using Media Center 22, as you can see in the graphic. I believe that Media Center 28 now is actually available. Okay, so I did go and look that up. And yes, JRiver 28 is actually released now. If you want a master license, which is good for multiple units, Windows, Mac, and Linux, it's $79.98 at their website. If you're looking at the Windows only version, it's $59.98. If I recall correctly, when I picked mine up, I think it was like JRiver, maybe version 19 or 20, something like that. I'm going to say I think I paid between $35 and $40. Anyway, so you're probably going to say, why am I recommending this? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So if you have one of the upper level radios in your truck, or you have replaced it with an aftermarket unit that can play thumb drives or any USB source, and you get somebody running up and they're like, oh yeah, I downloaded some great tunes from the internet, I pulled these MP3s. Yeah, right. Okay, well, let's talk about that. If they were high quality encoded rips, they may not be too bad. Maybe. If they're telling you that they got it from some free site and it sounds awesome in their truck, well, okay, maybe they have a really good system in their truck and these don't sound too terrible. They definitely can be better. Let me dive into that a little bit. So what you're seeing on screen here, if you have a CD or a DVD audio, or actually even a DVD that may have some actual video content, and there maybe is some songs that are on there that you wanted. What you want to do when you go to rip these is use, when you're seeing right there in the middle of the screen, FLAC. So picking the FLAC encoder. Why I'm recommending that? FLAC is lossless. It is bit perfect, which means that there is no squashing. And what I mean by that is what a lossy encoder does is takes information that appears to be so low or invisible in the background that it can be removed without being noticed. Well, Yeah, not really. FLAC files are going to be pretty large. They are going to be the best in this type of genre, at least anyway. And when played back on good quality equipment, they are going to sound very, very nice. Now, the factory system doesn't recognize FLAC, and even some aftermarket units will not. So what you're going to do is first rip them using FLAC and save them. Then JRiver has a conversion routine, which I'll get to in a second. Okay, so if you take a look in the lower left of the graphic that's now on your screen on display, you'll see converting format, and it's converting one file. I'm just doing this as a sample. This just happens to be one of the albums that I had on here. It's Symphony Number 9, Beethoven. I listen to a bunch of different music, as you can see there. I've got Rick Springfield, Working Class Dog, mixed with Beethoven and Josh Groban. So you never know what you're going to run across on my machine. But anyway, regardless of all of that, the effects and procedure are still the same. So you see there where it says VBR encoding. So the different possibilities there are small portable, high quality portable, normal, high, or extreme. High and extreme are going to give you very good quality. That's going to be a 192 kilohertz sampling, and it's going to make a reasonable sized file. They're gonna grow some. So be prepared for that. You won't be able to ram 20,000 songs onto a small portable ROM drive, EEPROM. But the big thing is, back to what we were talking about, what do you want it to sound like? All those little nuances that get lost. If you've ever heard of really high-end equipment, and I've been very fortunate to live here on the East Coast, right near Washington, D.C., and every year, it's now been switched to November. I think it used to be back in June or July, if I remember correctly. Anyway, there is a huge gathering out here in a town right near D.C. called Rockville, Maryland, and it's Capitol Audio Fest. And it's pretty amazing, really, to get to hear equipment that goes from a couple of $1,000s up to one of the conference rooms, which is actually literally holding more than $1 million worth of equipment. These range anywhere from stuff that looked like it was pretty much assembled in a garage all the way up to tube amps and preamps and digital to analog converters. $20,000-$50,000. I saw a turntable that really looked like it had been constructed for parts for one of the NASA Mars rovers. The quality of machining was just phenomenal. You didn't look like you even wanted to play it or touch it. It looked like one of those things where you just stare at it because it looked like a piece of artwork. Amazing. And when it got to play that, I heard an old recording of Ella Fitzgerald played on this turntable, played through $28,000 speakers with a $50,000 tube amp, and the tiny amount of hair that I have left on my head in the back of my neck was standing up. It was phenomenal. So, are you going to be able to reproduce that in a vehicle? No. Are you going to be able to reproduce that at home? Probably not, unless you're going to have a dedicated listening room and you're going to spend that kind of money or something near that to get there. However, is it possible to get at least some tracks that will be very close to making the hair on the back of your neck stand up? It is. Like I said, it's going to be difficult in a moving vehicle. If you're trying to sample what your radio really sounds like, you probably want your truck engine off and not be moving, just on accessory, obviously. Or if you've hooked up your radio to some separate switches, like a large Camaro system that I built once years and years back. Actually, it's more like decades back now at this point, thinking about how old I actually am. But anyway, if you were to feed that an MP3 signal, high or extreme, or if you have a unit that will accept FLAC. From there, if you have started out with good quality material, like a high standard CD, some of the limited edition, limited pressings, gold, Telarcs, things like that, they are very, very good. And most of that detail will come through when you use a high quality transfer like this. So there is where you have to draw the line. Like I said, there are 5 different encoding possibilities here, and small portable is probably the one you're getting when you're sharing MP3s that you got either from the internet or from one of your friends or something of that nature. And they're like, oh, you got to hear this, dude. This thing is awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so why am I going through my audio resume here? I started out in audio, just missed the 8-track era and caught it right at the very beginning of cassette audio, before CDs even existed or were probably thought of outside of somewhere in a research lab. I'm not trying to bore you to death here. I'm just trying to tell you that I do know what actual good audio sounds like. A lot of people will tell you that they have a great ear, and yeah, well, some of them are probably telling the truth. They very well might, especially if they have a background as a musician. But a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, this sounds so great. Come and hear my car or my truck or my home or whatever it is. Yeah, and you're trying to be charitable so you don't hurt their feelings, and you're just kind of looking and you're going, ugh. So you wait till they turn away before you make the face and jam a finger in your ears or in your mouth, doing that face, and you know the one. Anyway, so back to the task at hand, the encoding. You want to use the highest rates, as I had mentioned, and go from there. If you start out with a good quality CD, you start out with a good quality software, which JRiver definitely is. I don't know if they're a publicly traded company. I really have no idea. I don't own any stock if they are. I just happen to know that my brother had actually pointed this company out to me. He's actually into audio a lot more than I am. And for what he has spent on his system, as far as dollars, it sounds like it's punching in a class probably 10 times, maybe 20. Over what he's spent. I've heard $30,000-$40,000 systems that probably would be definitely fighting to keep up with what he's got going on. And a lot of this has been homebrewed. That might be another one, another subject that I may get into sometime. Talking about that, I mean, that gets really esoteric when you're actually starting to replace resistors and especially capacitors to improve audio quality. So anyway, yeah, that's probably way outside the scope of what we're talking about today. But anyway, I hope without belaboring the point that this has been helpful to you, that you see that there are ways to really relatively inexpensively improve your source material, because honestly, it doesn't matter how much you spend on upgrading speakers, whatever the vehicle happens to be, how much you spend on amps and extra wiring and all of those other things, because the signal chain is exactly that. It's a signal chain, and at the very beginning of that chain, if you think about it like an anchor on a large ship, at the very end of the other end of the chain is a large motor and capstan, a winch. So you could think of the winch as being the starting point and the most important point, because everything is downstream from there. So if your source material is junk, it's never going to sound really that great. If some of the links in between are not so hot, well, that's something you can work on, but it's not so terrible. I have Morel speakers, which are actually built in Israel, believe it or not. I was surprised. And they are 6.5-inch component set in the front doors I haven't done anything to the rears. If you've been watching my videos, obviously you know that I have a crew cab. I did a lot of sound deadening and did some videos on those projects. And I replaced the two tweeters in the dash because I do have the Rockford Fosgate system. And I replaced them with Sundown Audio, or Sundowner. I'd have to look that up. Yeah, I think it's Sundown. Anyway, 2.75s, and it sounds really quite good. There are some people on Club Frontier who will argue that they are also audio experts and that it's absolutely impossible for your system to ever sound good with the factory head unit because that's a head unit that should be used either as a wheel chock or a door opener, that it has absolutely no quality at all. I definitely disagree with that. Will an aftermarket head unit outperform it? Yes, absolutely it will. But in my personal opinion, in my humble opinion, upgrading your speakers should be first. Get the best speakers you can afford, and if you're planning on doing the head unit and an amplifier later, that's completely fine. But like I said, it's like a chain. At the other end is the anchor, if you pardon the analogy. And at the other end of this particular chain are your ears. So everything in between is all linked together tightly. So if some of those links, yeah, they may not be the best. Again, the head unit and the factory Rockford Fosgate amplifier, which happens to reside underneath of the passenger seat if you've never actually looked for it and you have one. And the RF subwoofer actually is really not that bad. It actually will hit fairly well with some decent source material, again, if it's a better quality. And for what I've got into it, I think my system does sound pretty good. And I can definitely say that there are variances from one to the next. But again, like I said, most of that is the source material. So it's completely up to you. You can decide to rip everything out at once. You can do upgrades in pieces like I did. I'm not really sure that I'm ever going to replace my head unit. Like I said, it's a truck. It's pretty loud. It is not going to give you maximally fantastic sound quality. The human range of hearing for, I should probably say for a child, is nominally listed as 20 hertz up to 20 kilohertz. Babies can usually hear probably somewhere up to around 30 kilohertz until you put them into a car and slam the door once. After that, they've probably lost 4 to 5 kilohertz of super extended high end because that's just how our ears are. We all know that our hearing degrades over time and age. Otherwise, hearing aids would not be a giant business. So given that 20 to 20,000, if you have a system that's capable of reproducing most of that, it's going to sound quite good. Again, quickly back to what I was talking about, the nuances. So you may have a track where you have a singer. Now, the singer may sound pretty good, and hopefully he or she has a decent voice and doesn't sound like fingernails on a blackboard, and you're like, oh gosh, when's this torture going to end? But the thing is that what you're really looking for is, in a good quality recording played through a high enough end reproduction system, you're going to hear things. You're going to hear the person breathe in between. You're going to catch those little sibilants, the s, as they're saying an S. You'll hear the hi-hats, a little bit of second and third harmonics, all those things that get lost in a really, averagely crappy factory system. If you have the non-Rockford Fosgate, your speakers are actually rated at 3 watts. So that tells you a lot about what Nissan thought about how much money they were going to spend on the radio if you didn't order the upgraded sound system. So there you have it. Not going to belabor the point. I hope this was helpful. Again, like I said, I might do another one perhaps and see if I want to talk about things in more detail. Please leave comments. I would really, really like to know what you think. Hopefully you've made it through this, and I, as I said earlier, haven't bored you to death or sent you looking for your liquor cabinet. If people start commenting on this, then I would know, hey, people are actually listening to this. It would be worth my time to go ahead and go into more detail. Or maybe I just don't really care. That's fine too. That's why chocolate ice cream and vanilla still exist. Everybody's got their own level of I like and I don't like. No problem at all. So, FG signing off. Until next time, get that truck out there and get it muddy, because if it ain't muddy and it's a four-wheel drive, you ain't using it right. See ya.